So I've got 3 tips for you that might help if you're struggling with your loose lead walking. So one of the main reasons that dogs get rehomed was because they pull on the lead, which is quite surprising. It's one of the leading statistics that the Dogs Trust publish when it comes to behavioural problems and the reasons that people have rehomed their dog. And it's a sad thing because it's really very trainable if you get it right and you know what you need to do. Something that's important to know is that it's not about your dog being disobedient. It's not about the dog being dominant or trying to be the alpha or anything like that. It really is just a training issue. Dogs don't naturally want to walk the same pace that we do. They walk a little bit faster than we do. And so naturally they're going to want to pull ahead. The other side of the coin is something called the opposition reflex. So dogs, sit, heel, yeah. Okay. So the opposition reflex is something that we all have. Dogs have it, we have it, all animals have it. And that's the effect that it has is that if someone was to come up to you and try and push you over, you would resist that to hold your balance, to hold your, to stay upright, protect yourself for whatever reason. And dogs do the same thing. It happens all along the spectrum, from a little bit of pressure all the way up to someone jumping into you. So the thing is that the more a dog pulls into the lead, the more they are going to pull into that opposing force. Good girl. So the more a dog pulls into the lead, the more the lead opposes that force. Good girl. The more that the dog is then going to pull into the lead. So that's one of the big problems we have with teaching dogs to walk on a loose lead. Leave. Good girl. Good girl. So that's one of the big problems. The other one is that the other big issue is that when a dog pulls towards something, they're having to work harder to get at it. And again, this is massively motivating. The harder you have to work for something, the bigger the payoff is when you get there. So if a dog is trying to get to the end of the street, or they're trying to get to the park, or they're trying to get to that cheeseburger that someone's left in a bush, they pull to get there and they have to work harder to get there. It's a much bigger payoff when they do get there. So yeah, we've got these two issues that mean that dogs are just going to always work harder, and that problem is just going to go up and up and up. So there's some big things we need to do in the first instance. Because it's such a kind of a self-reinforcing behaviour, it means that we need to first off try and have different modes of working. So we need to make that context really clear whilst we're training this. When we're loose lead walking, practicing our loose lead walking, and when we're just trying to get from A to B. And a great way to do this is to have two separate modes. So we might have a mode of equipment that is there for management. So this might be something like, if your dog is a particularly big puller, it might be something like a head collar that helps you get down the road without your dog pulling. But that isn't teaching your dog not to pull. That's just helping you get from A to B. And then the second mode is when we're going to clip onto the collar, or maybe when we're first starting doing this, we might use a slip lead or something like that. But it is going to help us teach the dog loose lead walking. I mean, in that instance, we're going to be really strict, and the dog's never going to pull into that piece of equipment. If the dog starts to pull, the walk is going to stop, or we might head off in the other direction. And they're not going to find success in walking in that way. Let's go. Good girl. So that's tip number 1 for you. Tip number 2 comes from another particular problem where we get stuck in a loop of the dog not getting enough exercise because we don't feel that they've got that obedience that we need from them. So we don't trust them to go off the lead. They get shorter walks, perhaps sometimes even because it's such hard work to take them out. We're less enthusiastic about doing it. So before we start in practicing any of this loose lead stuff, and having the dog walk nicely on a loose lead, we need to make sure that the dogs have plenty of exercise. So whatever that needs to look like, it might be playing with your dog in the garden with a tuggy, getting some of that energy out before you go out on a walk. It might be going to a secure field so the dog can have a really good run around before you start to then practice some loose lead walking. It might even just be driving to where it is you're going to go to start with. If you're going to the park or whatever, instead of letting your dog drag you all the way there, put them in the car, drive them there, get them on the flexi lead, get them on the long line, give them a good bit of exercise. Then towards the end of the walk, as they start to get tired, we can then start to help them practice their loose lead walking. So that's tip number 2. So tip number 3 then. What I see is a lot of people trying to keep going with something they learn online and it's not working. So this is tip number 3. If you've been trying something for a long time, maybe you've been giving the dog a pop on the lead when it gets to the end of the lead or something like that, and you've been doing this for months and months and months and you're not seeing anything improving, there's a reason for that, and it's time to see something different. It's not necessarily that the technique you're doing is wrong. It's not necessarily that it's not a good way to, as part of the overall mix of teaching your dog how to walk on a loose lead and walk nicely alongside you. But if something's been going on for a long time, especially if it's something like some kind of consequential punishment that isn't working, we need to change that. We need to change it up. Because dogs either built up a tolerance to something like that, it's just not working for them anymore. Good girl. Go get it. Either the dog's built up like a tolerance to it, or it just doesn't understand what it is it's supposed to be doing, rather than what you're telling it not to do. Meg, this way. Good girl. So that's really key. If we're there's lots of things that can come up that aren't working for people, but especially if we're using something like a consequence that's not working, we're just, like, best case, we're just nagging the dog. Worst case, we're actually creating all sorts of stress for them, and we don't want to do that. It's not to say we shouldn't have consequences and boundaries for our dogs, but if we are and it's not working, we need to change what we're doing so that we've got something that is effective and doesn't just become a conflict with the dog and ruin the overall relationship you've got with them. So that's tip number 3. If you're doing something and you've been trying to do it for a long time and it's not working, time to change it, try something else. So there's 3 tips for you. Loose lead walking is honestly one of the hardest things to teach. It's got so much stuff working against it that we really do have to kind of put in a lot of work to make it a habit for the dog to walk in a way that's really quite unnatural for them. So try some of these things, change it up, use some different equipment for different situations. Make sure your dog has had plenty of exercise before you start practicing. If you're still struggling, I'm running a loose lead walking course that will take you through everything you need to know to overcome all of these issues, and start to have much more enjoyable walks with your dog. But if nothing else, hopefully this has been helpful. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe and like and do all of those things. And I'll hopefully see you next time.